Hello and welcome back to UI Chat from the Interface, the podcast focused on the latest news from Ubiquiti and anything network related. I'm Alex, and once again I'm joined by Evan McCann. Howdy, Evan. You alright?
Yeah, good to be back. I'm a little sad we don't have a guest this time. I guess it's just me and you.
Yeah, just the two of us.
It's been nice having all these guests the past 5-6 months. I feel like we've had one for a while now.
I think we have. I think we did October, just me and you, and then it was August, September, November. Yeah, that's about right. We've had some quite big names on, which has been good fun. I'm pleased to report the last few episodes of the show have done really, really well, actually. The episode with Cody had over 1,000 views, and so did the one with Tom, which for a niche little podcast like ours is actually quite impressive. If we look back at some of the early episodes, they were barely hitting a couple hundred, so it's nice to see the show grow, and it's good fun to record.
Well, yeah. Speaking of guests and growing, we got some more UWC events.
We have, actually. These were announced the other day, and there's 4 events, and all of them are within the month of May. So we got Mexico, Brazil, London, which I'll be going to, and Berlin in Germany. And yeah, who knows what they're going to announce? Should be good fun. Hopefully they bring some to North America and Canada and stuff, so people can go to those as well. But
yeah. So you're going to the one in London?
Yep.
Nice. And I saw on that page they did have one of the questions we had about this is like, are they recording these sessions? Are they planning to present these to the public? They noted right below those 4 dates they have kind of a quick little recap. I didn't watch the full video, but of the Sydney event. I think from I forget if that was late last year or early this year.
It was last year, just before the Miami one.
Right. So yeah, I wonder if maybe you'll show up in a recap video for the London event this year, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be the same thing as last time. A non-consequence NDA, kind of no NDA that you have to sign, but sort of a polite ask to say please don't talk about anything, which we do respect because it's right.
we do,
yes,
but not everyone does.
No, that's very true. Yeah, so that's gonna be good fun. So May 13th is the first one in Mexico, and then the last one is May 22nd in Berlin. Register if you're interested. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. And then last episode we mentioned that the UISP had disappeared from the store. What actually happened is it's nicely hidden rather than removed. So if you go to store.ui.com, click on search, you do get the UISP and amplify buttons, which do then appear. And as someone pointed out in the forums, once you click on UISP, the search bar is still open, and it only looks like they make wireless stuff. Then you have to click on cancel, and then you get all the options. Someone was a bit confused about on the Ubiquiti forums, I noticed the other day, and that prompted me to have a look. Just really bad UX. Really.
Yeah, I would hope that this isn't the final form. It is there's no reason for them to be hiding UISP as much as they are, and yeah, the UX of you hitting that button, then needing to hit cancel to see all the products. I would assume that's just a mistake, or something that they haven't addressed yet. But the fact that this has been such a weird, over the past week or two, these changes have been rolling out. It just kind of shows how little they seem to care about UISP. And they even have another thing I noticed is in the upper left, kind of where they have the company logo, it just says UniFi. So it's almost like UniFi is a bigger name than Ubiquiti at this point, and they're downplaying UISP and everything else they do outside of UniFi, and they're just kind of leaning into UniFi is everything we do.
It's the same thing on the main company's homepage, ui.com. It says UniFi. No wonder people are confused about what the company is now, because you got UniFi on the main homepage, and then to get to UISP, you have to hover over the UniFi logo and then click on UISP carrier platform. That opens up a new tab, which gives you all the UISP stuff. It's really weird. I don't know.
And I haven't kept up, but I remember last time I looked at it, I think sometime last year. I mean, UniFi is 80-90+% of their business, just looking at the money.
Yep.
So it makes sense for them to lean into it, but yeah, it does make me a little concerned about the future of UISP.
I think there's some software stuff that we've got to talk about in the show for UISP Wave, and that gives me a bit more confidence. And they've also got this new MLO stuff that's finally making some sort of appearance now. I just think it's something they are still taking a good amount of consideration over, but I think it's, from a marketing point of view, I don't think it's that high up for them anymore. I don't think they'll get any new... I don't know. I don't know how to run a business, so I don't know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, so
yeah, I think
they'll
so.
figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of hardware, this was looking through these show notes earlier today. It was a pretty light month, and then of course, thankfully they did it a few days before the end of the month, where they normally drop a bunch of hardware. But today we did get some hardware news. Alex, did you see this?
Yeah. So I got a notification from YouTube. They published their YouTube video. We're recording this on the 25th of Feb, and about, I don't know, 6 hours ago, they published a little YouTube video displaying 5 new gateways and stuff. So
there's 5?
Oh, sorry, 4. Sorry, 4. There's a UXG-Fiber as well, which was unmentioned that appeared.
See?
Same, yeah.
I should watch the video. I'm glad you did that, because I only knew of the 3.
It wasn't in the video.
Oh, okay.
It was on the store.
Huh.
It appeared on the store because they did exactly the same thing with the Enterprise UXG. They announced the video with all the Cloud Console stuff, and then the UXG Enterprise appeared by itself. So yeah, we'll run through what they released basically. Quite a fast-paced little video as usual, and it's all Wi-Fi 7 based for the ones that have Wi-Fi, which is quite interesting. So the first one is the Express 7. From what I understand, from what I know, the Express itself is quite underpowered, the existing one, and this one seems to be a little bit more powerful. It can handle, one of the things that's quite apparent with all these devices, they all have 10 gig, in some form, 10 gig support, which is quite cool. So this one's got 2 Ethernet ports. One is 10 gig RJ45, and one is 1 2.5 gig port as well, and it says 2.3 gig IDS IPS, and you've noted here that the original Express didn't support that at all, so it's made quite a jump up in terms of its specs. And you said it's slightly larger as well, which it looks a little bit fatter than the old one. It's like going from the Apple TV 3 to the Apple TV 4, just gained a little bit of height.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a pretty good addition. It says $199 USD, which I can't quite remember how much the existing Express is. It says $149.
$149.
Yeah, so we've gained about $50, but looks pretty good.
Yeah, this one's a pretty straightforward upgrade, just a bit more powerful, goes from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 7. The upgraded interface speeds that you mentioned, I mean, having a 10 gig interface on a box this small, it's pretty sweet, and usually you don't see that on kind of, this isn't the absolute lowest end cheapest device, but for $199 it's a pretty low end device, and to have a 2.5 gig and a 10 gig interface, which is, everyone complains about any gigabit interfaces they see, they're like, why isn't that faster? So it's nice that they have the faster interfaces, Wi-Fi 7. And yeah, the increased like processing power. So it has a quad core 1.5 gig A53, whereas the regular Express has a dual core lower clocked A53. So faster processor. It has an extra gig of RAM. You get a lot more for that extra $50. So they still sell the regular Express for $149.
Yep.
But this is $199, and they did the same thing where they this can be its own standalone console, doing everything for your network, but it can also be just an access point. So you can buy like 2 or 3 of these. Is the way they seem to sell it. Kind of as like a mesh kit. So it's still a weird device, just like the Express, but it's a much more complete, much more full powered option.
Yeah, while you're talking now, I just had a quick look at what else is comparable to this kind of thing. There's a brand new device which is being released tomorrow, 26th of Feb, called the Aero Pro 7, and that's $299. And it looks to be very similar to what this is. It has Wi-Fi 7, tri-band like this one. It supports mesh. It's got it says 5 gig Ethernet ports, both of them. So this one has 110 and one. It seems very similar because I was trying to look at AO's website and see what single pack options they had because they'd like to promote the 3-pack options. But to come in at $100 less than that thing, that seems pretty competitive. So,
well, yeah, and even though that's me kind of reading into one small line on the product page. I mean, it's still a full UniFi device with the full UniFi software, which, yes, the Eero device maybe it has a few advantages, but it doesn't have the software, it doesn't have the features and the configurability that you get from UniFi. So it's a nice mix of low, you could like stick this at your parents' house or a family member or friend that doesn't want to do stuff with their network. That's kind of where I think mesh excels. Mm-hmm. And you could use an Express or an Express 7 in that kind of situation, but then you or someone could, remotely manage and configure their network. So it's a nice mix of both for sure.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. So I didn't really know where that sort of sat in the market, and the first thing I could think of was Eero. I've never used Eero, but yeah. Really cool. I didn't realise, but they've actually removed the old Dream router from the website now. I don't know when that happened.
Well, yeah, it's I noticed that it wasn't shown on the page, but they do that normally with current products that are just out of stock. Sometimes they just won't show in the category page. So if you search for it, it just shows out of stock. It's still referenced on the tech specs page. So I'm not. It's unclear if it's going away or they're just selling through their current inventory and it's going away later, or it might just be out of stock temporarily and it'll be back.
Yeah, it just says out of stock. It's not searchable. So that tells me it's going to be pretty much removed.
Yeah, but it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, the Dream Router 7 is kind of similar to the Express 7 for the Dream Router. So it's a more powerful Wi-Fi 7 version of the Dream Router. And the Dream Router is, it was definitely the least, just like the Express, the kind of low end, least powerful. So this is a very nice upgrade. And it's pretty similar to the Express 7 where more powerful processor, additional RAM. It has the 2.5 gig IDS IPS, similar. Mm-hmm. The interfaces are interesting too. It has 4 2.5 gig RJ45s. It also has a 10 gig SFP plus like fiber interface, which that's another thing you don't see often is kind of a 10 gig fiber interface on like a low end router. I love to see that, but it's not something you expect for something that costs $200-300.
No, and I do remember there was supposed to be when was it? It was the UDM base. There was supposed to be a pro version of that UDM base that got leaked, and it did have this SFP interface. They've obviously.
I think that was originally called the UDM SE, which now that name is the rack mount.
That's the one, yeah.
PoE version of the UDM Pro, but yeah, I think the UDM SE black with that big screen.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
So what's weird about this is the old Dream router says 40-watt PoE budget, and it had 2 ports out of the 4 with PoE that would do AF on those. We've now gone down to 1 AF port for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure why.
Yeah, well, that's a weird small downgrade. I would assume it's just size, component, doesn't have enough power. Who knows why? The other downgrade or omission from upgrading to the new model, I didn't see a mention of the 128 gig SSD that's built in. Oh, yeah. They didn't really specify any internal storage, but the way that the Dream Router was, there was like either a 16 or a 32 gig eMMC storage for like running the operating system.
Yeah, you're right.
They also had a 128 gig SSD it was used for UniFi Protect, but only motion. You couldn't do like always on recording. You could do motion detect recording with that 128 gig SSD. Yeah. And then there's an SD card slot. It seems like we're going to just the eMMC for the OS and just the SD card slot. There's no SSD in there, I think.
Okay, so the old one, it says here built-in 128 gig SSD, and you can expand it to a micro SD. What it's saying now is NVR storage is a pre-installed 64 gig micro SD card, but it says also that there's an expansion slot. Again, like you mentioned, it's not very clear if that means there's a SD card slot inside the device, or that's a bit weird, to be honest.
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, this device is $80 more. So the old UDR is $199. This is $279. Mm-hmm. So paying $70 more, but you're upgrading to Wi-Fi 7, you're upgrading to the 10 gig SFP, and the 2.5 gig interfaces. You're losing a PoE out. You're probably losing that SSD. I think it was just like, they had to drop some things to add other things. And I think they preferred to get the fast interfaces, and leave those other things out just to kind of meet the price point.
Yeah, and also when you look at the the images on the device, there's a little breakdown of what comes in the box, essentially, like the power supply, a metal thing to get the SD card out, I guess. But also, there's an SD card pictured next to the new one. So I can't work out whether or not they're just supplying the SD card slot, SD card, and then you can get a bigger one if you want to. But also, the power supply on this is all internal. So what you were going back to with things might take more power, but you've got SFP, which, from what I understand, SFP takes a lot of power anyway. You've got a third Wi-Fi radio, and you're also going now to 2.5 gig ports. I don't know if they use any more power. So all those things combined probably have eaten into the power supply budget in some form or another. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I would expect.
Yeah.
Is it just became too much power, too much heat, too much cost. So they had to cut a few things, and I think those were reasonable trade-offs. Like, I think a lot of people would be happy to get rid of the SSD or one PoE port. They're going to get a PoE switch anyway with this thing.
Yeah.
And you do get a lot more just processing power. With the old Dream router, you could only run network and 2 additional applications at a time. There's no reference to that on the new one. Because of that more powerful processor, it seems like it runs the full UniFi suite, and you can run all the software simultaneously with this. So very nice upgrade. And the Dream router, whether or not it's for sale, after it comes back in stock, or whether they're going to continue to sell it, I wouldn't recommend that. I think the Dream Router 7 firmly replaces it kind of in the lineup. Yeah.
And then for your extra $80 essentially between the Express 7 and the Dream Router 7, you're getting basically a switch, you're getting SFP, same sort of Wi-Fi specs by the look of things. You're just getting a bit more all-in-one solution type of thing. So and you get
and
camera support, protect as well.
So
it's not bad.
Yeah, this is the same. It's 5 HD cameras, 2 2K, or 1 4K camera. So you can't have a large camera setup, but if you just have a doorbell or 1 or 2 cameras or something, great little box for that.
Yeah, pretty good that. So that's $279. It's on sale now by the look of things. The other one is this is 2 devices basically, as I mentioned earlier. There's a cloud gateway fiber, the UCG-Fiber, and the UXG-Fiber, which is quite interesting. So these are both $279, same price as the Dream Router 7. They don't have built-in Wi-Fi, but they have got a lot of interfaces on them. And it was interesting in the video, they said this is offering a UDM Pro-like experience, but in a much smaller package. And judging by the specs, I think that's probably accurate, apart from the lack of a big hard drive slot. So, what do you think? What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think Clay said the same thing about it is kind of taking that UDM Pro rack mount experience down to kind of a desktop form factor. It makes sense, especially if you're just looking at the SFP interfaces. Having that on a small little desktop size device is, that's the first time UniFi has done something like that, I believe. I know other vendors definitely have had these options before, but this is the first time we have 10 gig interfaces, big throughput without having a rack mount device. Yeah, and it's funny, until you said it 15 minutes ago at the start of the show, I didn't realize the UXG-Fiber existed. They definitely snuck that one in there, but it makes sense because they did the same thing for the Ultra and the Max, and now the Fiber. It's you have 3 different flavors of these devices that are similar, and you can get it with the controller built in or without. So there's 6 devices, but it's really 3 different devices, kind of.
Yeah, I was just looking just underneath the desk at my the Ultra Labs Route 10, and this seems very similar to this. It's got PoE on some of the ports. It's got 2 10 gig SFPs, and it's a nice little. It looks like a nice little form factor. And coincidentally, within like 2 minutes of Ubiquiti's video coming out, I think Cody, Chris, and Clay, and also Jesse released videos on all these devices. So it's all coordinated and stuff. But no, I think this is a it looks like a nice little device and quite a good price as well. On that one, really.
Yeah, and it is pretty similar to the UCG Max, the Cloud Gateway Max, because that's the one where you can add the storage.
Yes,
it's a bit more capacity for as far as cameras. You can manage up to 15 HD cameras, 8 2K or 5 4K cameras. With the Cloud Gateway Fiber, you get 5 gig IDS IPS throughput and more if you have that feature disabled with those 10 gig interfaces. So more powerful CPU. I think everything that we're talking about has 3 gigs of RAM. So not a huge step up, just a bit faster processor, a bit faster interfaces, but yeah, just I think the fiber is the star of the show, and it makes sense because that's in the name.
Yeah, it's a really good addition. So you're getting I think before this, the way to get fiber into UniFi was the UXG Pro, I believe. If you're talking about UXG devices, anyway, this is the smallest form factor now that will do fiber, which is quite cool.
Yeah, you needed a rack, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
And we just mentioned that the UCG version has the option for storage, just like the Ultra device you mentioned, or the Max device, sorry. But then the UXG is the same price. It has 1 gig of RAM less, so it's got 2 gigs. Because it doesn't have to run anything really, and that doesn't have the storage, obviously. But it has got both devices do have PoE on one port. So one port does PoE plus AT. But yeah, it looks pretty good, to be fair. Nice little form factor for quite a few deployments.
Yeah, and this is $279 to start. It mentions the same thing as the Cloud Gateway Max, where you can configure the storage. I didn't see pricing for any of that, but I would assume it'd be similar to the Cloud Gateway Max, where it's $100, $200+ extra if you go for the terabyte or 2 terabyte SSD, or you can buy the little SSD slot to put in your own storage, right?
100%. So yeah, the no storage option, you can buy the tray for $19, or a terabyte takes you from $279 to $399. So with I think with the $19, that's about $100 in it, and it's a bit more from 1 to 2. It's looks like $130, so it takes you to $530 for 2 terabytes.
So it's similar to the Cloud Gateway Max. Yeah. It just starts, I believe, like $80 more. Seems like all these devices are like $50 to $80 more than what they replaced, and you get the extra money and those extra features. Yeah,
I'm quite happy that they've launched a UXG version, because apart from the what we're looking at here, apart from the UXG Max, this is the only other UXG with a built-in switch, which for small little deployments brings the cost down significantly because you haven't got to buy an extra switch, and also you've got one PoE socket on it, so it means you could theoretically just have this UXG-Fiber and one AP, and then you're set basically. For like a small little deployment for like a home or something. Really good idea, that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so I think it was earlier in February, Ubiquiti announced SuperLink. Now, at the UWC conference last year, during the Q&A section, someone questioned the reasoning behind the new UniFi 7 APs not having Bluetooth. And at the time, they alluded to having... I think Robert Perez said we're going to have a dedicated sensor solution at some point. So this is obviously what this is. So that's why the new APs don't have Bluetooth in them. So
right, and that's is there I know this is new hardware. This is like the gateway part of it, or the thing all the sensors connect to, for lack of a better term. Is there a new sensor, or is that the UP Sense? Is that the existing sensor that they were selling before? Because that's a Bluetooth sensor, and this new SuperLink is a new proprietary wireless protocol.
Yeah,
that's right. Only Ubiquiti stuff. So I'm assuming that's coming later, the new sensor?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of new sensors. There's actually, I think, 6 or 7 new sensors, like in the YouTube video. I think there was window brake sensors, motion there's all kinds of different things, remote key fobs and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I did look at the FCC website. I couldn't work out what frequency this system operates on. I'd imagine it's sub-gigahertz, considering its 2-kilometer range with essentially non-line of sight. But yes, it's going to support both the legacy system, which is the Bluetooth system, and also the new SuperLink system.
Right.
When you use a UP Sense with a compatible AP at the moment, the range is very limited. And what they've said here that this SuperLink gateway boosts that Bluetooth range to quite a long distance. And they've said here it's comparable to Wi-Fi in terms of the range on it. So it will. There's lots of new Protect sensors coming soon for all different types of things, but they thankfully are supporting the old UP Sense device.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see the rest of them. I mean, I would assume protocol-wise, yes, this is proprietary. I'd assume it's very similar to Zigbee, or that's my assumption. It is probably sub 1 gigahertz. It's probably like a 900 megahertz or whatever. I don't know what frequencies Zigbee uses, but it's lower.
Yeah, definitely.
Which the lower you get, the longer you can go. So.
Yeah, and Clay did a video on this device about 2 weeks ago, just talking about the SuperLink gateway itself. I'm just looking at the YouTube video they released. There's lots of different things here. There's so they've got a siren, they've got a fob, glass break sensor, environment sensor, smoke detector, which is quite cool. They've also got an alarm hub with built-in relays. Looks very similar to the UniFi access devices. I've got no imagination in terms of what that could offer people. There's a relay sensors and entry devices, so door sensors, air quality, motion, and then an alarm control device as well. It's got potential. A lot of the examples they gave were warehouses and industrial settings. It's not really designed for home use because we've got a home kit, but you could use this in a home if you want to. But yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned if you go to the all-in-one sensor right now and look at the 3-pack, they show a water sensor adapter.
Yes.
So they're showing that in a home behind a sink, where it's like you could detect if your sink is overflowing or something. All those other sensors make a lot of sense to me, especially for like a business use case. But right now, I think we're waiting for those sensors to drop for all of this to really make sense.
Yeah, that water sensor adapter has been practically unobtainable.
It's only in the 3-pack. It doesn't look like it's sold separately,
and it's never, from what I remember, it's never been in stock. I remember me and Willie talking about it at one point, like 2 years ago, and he couldn't get one, from what I remember.
It shows how much I pay attention to these products. I didn't even know this is 2-year-old news. Wow. Yeah.
And just like the UP Sense, which talks to UniFi Protect, all of the SuperLink stuff is all going to be inside of UniFi Protect. So the SuperLink gateway gets added to UniFi Protect, and all the sensors do. So it's all one part of a package. I'd imagine they'll do some sort of integration between these devices and the cameras, just like at the moment, if you've got a floodlight paired with a camera, you can turn the floodlight on from the camera and have it turn on with different alerts and stuff. So I'd imagine it all works in a cohesive manner in that environment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this supports up to 7 sensors of the current Bluetooth kind. It supports up to 96 with SuperLink. So I think there's going to be a lot of really exciting stuff to do with this. You know, once all of those sensors are out and all of the SuperLink products are available.
Yep.
I think it'll be an interesting thing. For now, it's just the gateway and Bluetooth. So.
Yeah, one thing they mentioned in the video was just like UniFi Protect can do, it would do webhooks. So you could have a Slack alert to say this has happened, or some sort of clever stuff to be with that. So
yeah, I'm sure you could do a lot of fun stuff with all that.
Yeah, definitely. We mentioned UISP and the Wave MLO5 after 4 months, is it, since we talked about it last time? I think it was October.
Time flies when you're talking about UISP.
Yeah, it does. It's made some sort of appearance on the store. Based on some things I've read, people on the forum have used it in different environments already. Now, we probably talked about it last time, but am I right in thinking that the addition of MLO in an outdoor device, that essentially means you could have one frequency for transmit and one for receive, essentially? Do you think that's what that means?
Yeah, the tricky thing about MLO and Wi-Fi 7 multi-link operation in general is that there's several types of it, and it doesn't always mean the same thing. So it could be multiple access points coordinating to broadcast to one client. It could be a client talking to two different access points. It could also be talking to the same access point over multiple channels. So you could be connected on 2.4 gigahertz and 5 and 6 to the same AP. And those three connections can kind of be, if 2.4 gig is the most busy, they probably wouldn't use that. They'd, fall over to the 5 or 6 gigahertz link. And that, I think there's even subtypes of those. So yeah, there's like at least 3 or 4 different types of MLO, and Ubiquiti isn't really explaining what they're doing here. But yes, multi-link operation is basically multiple channels all aggregated together to provide more throughput from an AP to a client, whether that's connecting to 2 APs or 2 channels or whatever. So it's not really clear. And the other part of this is we have the access point. We don't have the CPE radios yet. So you can buy the Wave MLO5. It looks like the LTU rocket or one of the Air Max rockets where you hook it up to an external antenna, but they don't have the CPE radios that match it. So you could, it's compatible with Air Max. You could use a old Nano Beam or something, but the Wave MLO5 CPE radios are really, once we have both of those available, we'll probably hopefully get more details about, what MLO, how they're implementing it, what the benefits are for this specific product.
You said that, I didn't think they were. You said that these are compatible with the Air Max AC stuff.
That was an assumption.
Oh, okay.
Are they not?
I don't think they are.
They aren't? So what's the CPE you're supposed to use with these radios if you buy it today?
The one they said in the video in October was, it looks like a Wave 60 gig Pro AP, but that, like, it's just got the same form factor, but it will support Wave. I haven't seen anything online yet about Wave MLO supporting the Air Max.
Oh, okay. Actually, I'm now that I'm looking at this, they apparently right now are only supporting point to point. So you can only use a Wave MLO5 connecting to another Wave MLO5. And in that case, I would think you're talking about 2 radios pointing at each other as a point-to-point link. Their version of MLO is multi-channel. So it could connect over multiple 5 gigahertz channels, because this MLO5 is only 5 gigahertz. There's no 6 gigahertz supported here. So I'm confused about. I'm excited about MLO and Wi-Fi 7 in general, but I would like more clarity about what this supports and what's the benefit of this over the LTU, which is similar in a lot of ways.
There hasn't been anything said. I'm just reading on the forum. Someone said there's no GPS sync, there's no upload download ratio settings, and this guy also said that the link stability is far away from 5x HD devices, and there's no carrier drop settings, which is quite an important thing to have.
Well, that's common with early firmware.
Yeah.
Those things will come. That's easy software changes. But yeah, I think the bigger thing, like, before anyone that's in the WISP space or anyone that would be looking at this hardware invest in this, the same way that LTU was rolled out in, I think, 2017, 2018, as this is the next generation. You don't need Wi-Fi 6. We're going to use LTU to kind of get up to 1024 QAM and give you all these benefits. And a lot of those didn't come. And 5-6 years later, LTU is we're getting some feature additions. So I would be hesitant to go all in on MLO5 right now until the 6 gigahertz radio, which is much more exciting to me, is available, until some CPE radios and point to multi-point mode is added. And those basic features that you just rattled off, like you can't set a uplink downlink ratio.
Someone said that. Yep.
Yeah, you can't use GPS sync. There's some basic stuff missing here. So I think Ubiquiti has some more work to prove that this is worth investing in.
Yeah, I just remember when things like Air Max AC were launched, that there'd be a whole big technical PDF about all the different advancements they've made. There is literally nothing on here that's of any substance to tell us from a nerdy perspective of what there is. All they've got is link puncturing, whatever that means. And it's very vague in terms of the advancements they've made. And there's no information about if it's compatible with Air Max AC, which I very much doubt it will be. If it was, I think they would have shouted about that
No, I missed the fact that it's point-to-point
Yeah.
mode only. And yeah, now that you mentioned that, I do remember reading that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just it's sad because I love these products. For $500, what this radio is, just focusing on the hardware. You have a 10 gig RJ45, 10 gig SFP.
Oh yeah.
Powerful processor. Like I think Ubiquiti has the hardware and most of the pieces there. It just seems like they're not putting the engineering effort behind it to make these products what they should be, and they're not putting the marketing behind it so that they sell, so that they invest. So it's like I don't know if they need to market them more and sell more to invest more, or invest more so that they sell more, or whatever. But it just seems like they've lost their way on the UISP side a little bit.
Yeah. There's actually 2 radios on this. So radio 1 is up to 160 megahertz, and radio 2 is up to 240 megahertz. So there are actually 2 5 gig radios at play here, which probably helps the MLO feature. But modulation, you mentioned that LTE went up to 1024. This one goes up to 4096 QAM at 5 over 6. Yeah,
that's Wi-Fi 7.
Yeah, it's crazy. In practice, this should be cool to try it out. Yeah.
Since we're here and we're talking about these nerdy things, to get it,
I know there's thresholds, isn't there?
Yes, you need to basically be very close on a very clean channel, ideal situation, and you're getting, I think at best, 25% more data throughput than you are with 1024. Like we're well past the diminishing returns. Like even 1024 Wi-Fi 6, that was I think 25% over AC Wi-Fi 5. So it's more and more ridiculous to expect those highest link rates. Like that is best case scenario, short distance. You're probably never going to see it in real world use, but yes, you do get higher data rates, you do get more throughput. That's why we're moving to MLO. That's why wider channels, multiple radios, those things are important, because adding higher level QAM is, you get less out of it more and more.
So we're missing these technical documentations essentially. Like I remember you read the fiber documentation, it tells you at what signal level, at what distance you should be able to achieve this certain level and what it can actually do. It's unfortunate we're missing these sort of breakdown, and the video itself from October is really vague. And I know that the UniFi World Conference is focused on UniFi, so I don't know if we can actually ask any UISP questions while we're there, but
be like, what's the receive sensitivity on the MLO 5? You'll get shown out.
Hoping they'll add some more features at some point. It would be nice to get hold of one and put it through its paces, but I haven't got the environment anymore to test that. So
and we've already gone too long, but I am excited for MLO 6. I am excited to see this platform mature and more of these products, but hard to get excited yet.
Right, that's the hardware, most of which was announced today. Have you had a chance to mess around with this new version of UniFi 9? I haven't really yet. So
you don't live on early access? Come on, man.
I haven't had the chance to install this version just yet. So
okay. Yeah, I saw when it was released, I don't know, a week, maybe 2 ago. This is UniFi Network 9.1.92. It's in early access. Just like every big update for UniFi Network, this is a very long list of changes. Probably the biggest one is the extended multi-WAN support. It's now supporting up to 8 WANs.
Wow.
And that's on the biggest gateways. So that's UDM Pro, UDM SE, Pro Max, the Cloud Gateway Ultra and Max. All of the ones that you'd expect, the higher end models support up to 8 WANs, which is kind of absurd because most people have 1, maybe 2. Once you start getting to 8 WANs, like I'm not sure if UniFi is the right device, but putting that aside, nice changes to WAN support, and I think it also allows a bit more flexibility about which interface you want to assign as a WAN port.
That's right,
because it's always been kind of a mixed bag of like sometimes you have a 10 gig interface that you want to use as a WAN port, but it's already assigned as LAN, and those things. I think it just more possibilities about what you can assign a WAN to, and all of that. Port Manager got a big UX improvement. you can now replace your device and restore the config. So if a piece of hardware fails, you can just slap in the new piece of hardware and say, this is now my gateway. Please apply the previous configuration to it.
Awesome.
And what's this update about certificates?
It was a little footnote essentially somewhere.
We're finally getting the the hotspot certificates. Wow.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it with Tom last episode. It says added support for using certificates uploaded via UniFi OS for the hotspot portal, and there's a little asterisk that says requires UniFi OS 4.2, which isn't out yet. So,
wow.
Yeah, I reckon they watched our podcast and thought, "Oh crap, we better do this."
Yeah, finally. It's been years probably. And yeah, they've been promising it specifically for several releases now. But that's exciting because now when you visit a UniFi guest wireless splash page, you could secure it and have it be, at your own domain or whatever that certificate represents. So
yeah, woohoo! It's pretty cool now.
But yeah, there's a ton of other features. It just seems like one thing that we skipped over that I had noted earlier is on their product pages and in the tech specs on the UniFi website, the Ubiquiti website. I made the same mistake that they did. I just said UniFi as the company. They've added a bunch more detail to their data sheets. Well, maybe not a ton, but they've like, for example, the switches, they've started like listing out the individual features that are supported in a much more clear way.
I thought that was cool.
It's like, does it have loop protection and spanning tree and MC lag? All those things are like a check mark now, which is really nice. And it seems like that's kind of the treatment that the UniFi network interface is getting. There's not a lot of huge changes, but there's a lot of, this is just a little bit nicer, or this is shown in a much more clear way than it used to be. There's a lot of those like UI changes in this release too.
Well, if you look at a gateway, for example, there's a breakdown of what type of VPN supports what throughput level, which is really cool. So, like OpenVPN, IPsec, there's loads and loads of data, way more than we definitely used to have. I didn't even notice this until you pointed it out. It's gone way in depth, which is really cool. Yeah, it seems like UniFi Network got that same treatment where they're kind of going through things and making them, a little bit easier to understand, a little bit more detailed. I think Port Manager was the one that got the big update, which was really nice. But yeah, other than that, I mean, a lot of really nice stuff, and this is still an EA, but I'd assume we'll get 9.1, some version of it. Probably, hopefully early March, maybe. I imagine so. Be interested to see if that multi-WAN support comes to the UXG-Fiber as well, because that's got loads of ports.
I would assume it will.
Yeah.
Like, it'll probably be similar to the way, what's that feature where you can add on the subscription for IDS detections?
Cybersecure.
Cybersecure.
Yeah.
It'll be like that. I would assume it's like, there's going to be a lot of features where it's like everything except for the Express and UDR.
Yeah. There was one thing. So it says added the ability to disable radios in Radio Manager now, which is a huge improvement. You used to be able to do it in the past, and it went away. And the workaround at the moment is to give it an SSID, which is particular to that band, but you can now turn them off, which is really cool. There is also an option to change the default channel widths. So last time we mentioned that they've increased the 5 gigahertz channel width from 40 to 80, and now globally you can set that back to whatever you want. And there was one more thing. It was to do with, it says disable meshing for APs that have a wide uplink during upgrade. So I think some people may have run into an issue where when the AP upgrades and loses its LAN connection, it might try and mesh at some point. So they've added that back, which is quite good.
Yeah,
lots of nice improvements there. And there's a few little bits and pieces regarding EdgeSwitch and UISP switch. So EdgeSwitch X and UISP switch 1.10.1, same firmware versions, essentially the same device. They've added storm control support, port mirroring support, and just some various bug fixes and stuff. So pretty cool.
Very exciting. Well, yeah, and also Wave, the Wave APs, the 60 gigahertz UISP products, they version 4.0 is in EA, which they listed as a major update with core enhancements.
Sweet.
Which it reminds me of I think when Protect went to 5.0.
Yes.
That's when they mentioned like the improved core engine, more efficient recording. Like it kind of has that feel to me.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
they're kind of vague on what those changes are, but they say, you know, you should have improved performance. I didn't see anything where it's like it supports additional clients now because it's more efficient. It just seems like everything is better and trust us kind of update.
Oh, the big one I saw. There's actually UISP remote access support added. Which is this is probably the first wireless device they've added this to, which for like a WISP environment, that's so cool. You haven't got to spin up a VPN if you're, I don't know, like in the past I'd have to log into a VPN to get into access into GUIs and things, and a bit of a faff to troubleshoot things. But now you can just log in directly from UISP, which is awesome. Hopefully that gets added to all the other platforms as well.
Yeah, maybe in UISP switch 1.10.2 we'll get that added, but who knows.
And then in terms of other stuff, there's, I think Cody tweeted about it, but I also wrote a little blog post on my website about it. There's this Junction Utility box, which is advertised as for UniFi access devices. So I'm not too familiar with outdoor cabinets and things. I've only used a couple of them, but this has got a integrated backplate which you can drill into essentially and mount a DIN rail attachment. And they said it works with the Ultra switches, the Flex switches, the all of the hubs that for UniFi access, and it's waterproof and you can mount it outdoors. And it supports conduits of a certain size, and it's about $119. So I thought that was really cool. So I think it's the first outdoor cabinet they've made, and because it's lockable with a key, it's a bit more secure for UniFi access deployments anyway. So,
yeah, and I saw you put this in here. I was really struggling to find it in the store. I know you can search for it, but it is under what, access? Or
yeah,
Protect?
access accessories. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and it seems like it's only searchable.
Oh,
but because I don't see it on the store anymore.
So you go accessories and then for door access, you scroll right down. It's at the bottom next to the cables and key fobs.
There we go.
Stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's because they advertise it for switches. So I was looking at it as like a switch accessory.
Yeah.
You can't go to like the switches
No.
accessory page. It's a little bit hard to find, but it does seem like a nice box for sure.
Yeah. It's cheaper than the boxes I've used outdoor. It comes with all the mounting hardware, one key, which is a bit weird. All the cabinets I've had always come with two, but it's got built-in ears that look like they're part of the structure, and yeah, seems to support all the switches that have DIN rail attachments, but also I guess you can drill into that board directly if you want to.
Well, yeah, they'll later they're gonna add a key that you can buy for $10 as an accessory for this, for when you inevitably lose the one key that it comes with.
Yeah, they're probably generic keys anyway. The release today was Protect 5261. And actually, was it released today? Oh yeah, released today to GA, sorry. Not much stuff in here, but you can transfer access devices to a child console. So I believe if you've got devices stacked, you can now move access devices between them. It's for Protect anyway, and that's about it really. If you try and power an AI key with a passive PoE injector, it'll tell you you've either done it wrong or something. So
well, that's nice. Less fried equipment, hopefully.
Yes. I forgot to put a link in the show notes for it, but I decided to swap out at home my U6 Pro for a U7 Pro Max that I had for a video I did a while back. I forgot to even deploy. I just used it for the what was it? That QR code.
Didn't they give you one at UWC?
They gave me a U7 Pro actually.
Oh, okay, not a Pro Max.
No, I got the Pro Max because it had that inventory.
The spectral scanning?
No, it had the inventory scanner.
ZTP, zero touch provisioning.
That's the thing. And I never I just heard some horror stories about the U7 devices, so I decided never to use it. And what's weird is the last GA version of software for those devices, well, that Pro Max AP was August. And the August GA software is awful. It is so unstable and so buggy. And I ran through a load of different versions, and even 8.0 was so bad. It was, my phone wouldn't stay connected. All the IoT devices in the house was really unstable. And the version before 8.0.14 was a version that was actually usable. It is actually fine now. So,
So which version are you on right now? Are you on the latest, or are you on the version from August?
I'm on 8.0.14.
Okay.
The version from August is the last GA version they've got available, and that version, to me, for my setup, is so unstable. So I have heard some weird things about it. Yeah.
It seems like because I was looking through that. I know probably about 2 months ago they had we fixed the 2.4 gigahertz. Trust us this time. Release. But every other access point release, it's been like, this is only for the U7 Pro, or this is specifically not for the U7 Pro Max. It seems like they're still really having a lot of software issues with these U7 devices.
I can't work out why. If they're sitting on a different platform, like CPU-wise.
I would assume it's hardware differences.
Yeah.
The U7 Pro Max having that spectral scanning. I guess the E7 is also probably in that tree of the code or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know the specifics. It just seems like they're still struggling with all these new access points and the firmware for them.
Yeah. That was it. The one that I was on about was 8.0.0, and that's the one that says it's been sorted, and that was really unstable. 8.0.9 was also...
Well, that was a lie.
was also really unstable. And then, 8.0... Oh no, 8.0. I can't remember actually. It's been such a mess.
Right, but the good setup that you have is a U7 Pro Max running 8.0.14.
Yes,
and that's a GA release, right?
That's an EA release.
Oh, okay, it's an EA release, but that's the latest EA release, and things seem to be working now.
Yes,
kind of. For now. What's
bizarre is the last GA version for the E7 only, just the E7, was 7.0.107. And I was scrambling around trying to work out why it's all separate, and now 8.0.0 is now for the Pro Max and the E7 and all U7 devices. So God knows what's going on with the code and their software management. I just
great hardware devices.
Oh yeah.
I based on what I've heard, based on what I've read, based on your experience there, like I wouldn't be in a rush to upgrade. You know, if you're on a U6 or some other AP and having a good time, just stay put. Yeah,
it's my first 6 gigahertz AP as well.
Right.
And I was worried that like if you got 2.4 and 5 on the same SSID, that my phone would bounce all over the place. I've got two devices in the house at 6 gigahertz, and they both seem to just attach to the 6 gigahertz SSID, and that's it. And yeah, there was some talk about, so the version before the one I'm on, whatever that version was, it was having a weird disparity between the client RSSI and the AP RSSI. They were wildly out, and now it's been balanced. It seems a lot better now, so weird.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of weird, the other thing is the enterprise PoE switches. Now, these are the UniFi Enterprise 24 PoE, 48 PoE, and the XG-24. Yep. These are only, I want to say, 4 or 5 years old. I think they were like 2020, 2021. They were new devices.
That's about right, yeah.
You saw them, they were marked as legacy. What happened there?
I can't claim credit for this. It was actually Kevin, who I work with at Hostify.
Oh, okay.
He late Friday evening, my time, he said, this is a bit crazy. So they all had brackets next to their name on the store as legacy. Now, for UniFi veterans and stuff, we know that legacy means for a device, and that's going to be no software updates and nothing. I think someone who probably didn't know what they were doing probably added the term legacy to say it's an older device, but there are new versions available, and not fully knowing what legacy meant. They have now since fixed that and just put in brackets Gen 1, which is more in line with what we understand.
Right, but these are not... Yeah, I agree. That was a short time mistake that they fixed. These are not legacy. They're still for sale. They're still supported. The Gen 1 tag is strange to me because these are not Generation 1 switches. These came well after the release of the Gen 2 switches, which you can always tell by looking at the model number. If it's a USW,
Yes.
that's a second gen switch. These are second gen switches, but they label them as Gen 1. It does make sense because the way they have the Pro Max, Pro HD, Enterprise Campus, like there wasn't really much of a slot for these. Like the Enterprise 24 PoE really overlapped a lot with the Pro Max.
Mm-hmm.
It got really, really nitpicky about how many 2.5 gig interfaces do you want, which level of PoE.
Yep.
Like these three, if they do eventually stop selling them, I don't think a lot of people will be too hurt because there's 4 very similar options that they still will sell.
They probably should stop selling them, to be honest, because it's so confusing about what does what.
Like I would literally have to look at a detailed spec comparison to say, okay, you would buy the Enterprise 24 PoE if you need 2.5 gig and you need PoE or whatever, but those distinctions are so small.
Mm-hmm.
It does kind of clean up the lineup, but it is kind of strange, and I will be curious what happens with these 3 models, if they really will go away or if they really are quote unquote legacy. But
yeah, now if only someone could go to somewhere for a detailed guide on which switch is best to buy. I wonder what that could be.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone will do that someday.
Yeah. That is pretty much it for Ubiquiti stuff. This, as you said earlier, this was going to be a shorter episode than usual, but Ubiquiti gave us a curveball and launched a new video hours before we recorded. So thank you.
Right? Yeah, we were going to talk about some different stuff, but we'll have to do that next time now.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Right.
So before we get out of here and disappear, what have we been working on since we last recorded? So what have you been up to since last time?
Well, up until about 6 hours ago, I had different plans. But now I have some updates to do for my comparison charts. I was due to make a new version anyway for some other products that have been released, but now the gateways are here. All 3 of those that we talked about, or 4 of those that we talked about. So
yes,
updating my charts for those. I'm debating just doing kind of like an overview news post for those. Otherwise, hopefully getting back to what I was working on before.
Nice. I was having some weird issues with Webflow. Basically, there's I use Webflow from a website which I've mentioned on the show a few times. There's basically a set standard for a time format. It's called ISO something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and apparently Webflow doesn't actually conform to this standard, which upsets Google a little bit. And whenever you share an article, it just says midnight or 8 a.m. So
right. You don't want to upset Google. That's
no.
Sure.
So whenever I was sharing an article that was time sensitive, it would show that it was done 8 hours ago or something stupid like that. So with a little bit of help from the guy who does websites for Hostify, I managed to work out a bit of a hack. You basically had to deconstruct what Webflow was doing and then add a bit of code to it. So it now correctly adds the correct time, and I've got another green tick on the status of the site, so that's all good.
Awesome.
A bit weird. I'll put some.
I for one want to read a long post about how you fix that time error. That sounds like fun to me.
Maybe I might write that out for people.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a weird one, but yep. Still plodding along with the migration of our website. It started it in May, and it's probably going to take me another 2 or 3 years to finish that. So. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this time. We might have a guest next time. I'm not 100% sure yet, but we shall see. And then obviously we've got UniFi World Conference look forward to in a few months' time. That's pretty much it. Thanks for listening to the UI Chat podcast. If you like what we do, follow the show on all the podcast platforms, and you can see our handsome faces on YouTube. Give us a rating. This really helps other people find this show. Thanks, Evan, and we'll see you again next time.
See ya.
See ya.